Hello everyone. I got the idea for this video today as I was looking through my Twitter feed. You may be aware that I run a weekly gaming quiz on Twitter, which is always a lot of fun. Today I was really surprised to notice that there were quite a few people who weren't aware of the existence of this game, Anonymous Code. As you can see, I got the launch edition with a steelbook in it, and obviously I got it straight at release. I was so excited for it. And that was back in September 2023 when it came out in the West. It was released in Japan a year earlier. Now, I suppose you could say that this series of games, they're usually bundled under the title Science Adventure series, is considered rather niche in the West, although most people have at least heard of Steins Gate. Now, if you've been on my channel for a while, you will probably know that I consider Steins Gate one of the finest visual novels and therefore one of the best games I've played. Now, I can hear the sound of departing feet straight away when I mention the word visual novel. A lot of people tend to have the reaction, visual novel, no, not interested, too much reading, not enough gameplay. Well, I've got news for you. There is actually quite a lot of gameplay in this visual novel. Maybe not gameplay of the type you're used to, running around with a sword or shotgun, mowing down enemies. Not that kind, but still, you have to be on your feet. A lot of the action, when it comes, is very fast-paced. Your reaction times will be tested. Much of the gameplay is a bit like what I would consider sort of a mini-game, possibly. I remember there's one where you are racing along on a motorbike and you have to do stuff.
Momo!
Wait!
Hell no!
Hold your fire!
I didn't expect this to happen on my second day in Japan either!
Are you a VIP from some other country?
Please, you'd be better off not knowing anything more! I knew I shouldn't have dragged you into this!
Sure, there is a lot of reading because the story is paramount, but without your constant involvement, nothing will happen, and you need to concentrate and follow along. You can't just sort of, read it, yada yada. It's not that kind of reading, you really need to engage your mind with it. There are a lot of quite heavy concepts being explored, stuff I usually shy away from, mathematics, physics, philosophy. Okay, I love philosophy, but the heavy sciences, I've never been too good at those, and unless it's explained in simple and straightforward terms, my eyes glaze over. Well, the good news is there is a lot of very heavy stuff in this story, but it's explained in such a fascinating and exciting way that I was just carried along.
But under certain special conditions, there can be a perfect harmony that causes an endless loop. When the energy created by this movement reaches 9, we have an energy conversion.
And what does that mean?
This is what's called vortex math. And what's generated here is perpetual motion, free energy. Using math to unravel quantum mechanics reveals a perfect harmony. In a physical world, perfect harmony like this is impossible. Even though this idea is theoretically correct, environmental factors and such prevent it from being proven. It was just one of those things.
In particular, if you happen to have an interest in quantum physics, I would say this is the story for you. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of Schrödinger's cat. Yes, a pretty well-known philosophical and scientific experiment, but not a real-life experiment. It was a thought experiment conducted in, I think, 1935 by, of course, Mr. Schrödinger, in conjunction with, I think, Albert Einstein. Now, this thought experiment has been highly influential in the sciences. Schrödinger's cat has a central place in this story. Honestly, you gotta play it. So, saying the game came out in 2023 and I played it at release, why did I never talk about it on my channel if I liked it so much? Because I think it's pretty obvious by now I did like the game. Visual novels, and especially ones where the plot is helter-skelter, crammed full of exciting and important events practically every minute, they're very difficult to talk about and discuss. And you know, I take the issue of spoilers very seriously because this is 100% a game you want to go into knowing as little as possible about it. So I shied away from it for that reason. I show you a bit of my recorded footage. And no, you shouldn't need to worry about, being unable to watch the footage, because I will carefully edit it so that the sequence of what I show you should not give you any indication of any of the significant plot points. If there's any danger of anything important being revealed, however small, I'll put up a spoiler tag. If you check Metacritic, you'll see that the game reviewed pretty well. The people I talked to at the time it came out and I played it, we all had the same impressions, and they were very positive. So what happened? Why are people not talking about this game? Was it just a brief comet in the sky? I don't know, but I was really surprised that there seemed to be actually no name recognition for the game, which makes me think that it probably quickly flew under the radar, and for people who don't follow visual novel releases, it might simply not have existed at all. Well, that's a shame, I think. I can certainly give you an impression, and maybe you'll think, gosh, this looks interesting, and it is. If anyone is interested in picking up the game, I just checked the online stores today, all 3 of them, and the game is, well, I would consider it quite expensive digitally. But then digital prices seem to be inordinately high these days, from what I see anyway. You might have better luck trying to pick up a physical copy. Certainly the prices I've seen on eBay are lower than the digital prices, but that's the regular digital retail price. Of course, you can always wait for a sale, and I'm pretty sure, since the game is now, well, exactly 2 years old in the West, it does pop up in sales, often significantly reduced, and that would be the time to pounce. That's what I do anyway. So let's have some fun looking at footage from Anonymous Code, set in the very near future, in the year 2037. So Anonymous Code is in fact the 6th entry in the series. It came out in 2022 for PlayStation 4 and the Switch, and a year later also for PC. The game was developed by Majors and their associated studio, Chiyomaru, and in the West it was published by Spike Chunsoft.
Don't put up a front. I know you're relieved, am I right? Getting your ass handed to you by a little punk like me must have done a number on your pride as a soldier. Sorry, but I'm no script kiddie.
I think the voice acting is great. So if you prefer audio, there is actually not an awful lot of reading required.
Alright then, peace!
Occasionally, scenes are shown in comic strip format. I know, not everybody's cup of tea, but I quite like it. The reason why I'm hoping that people who say, I don't really play a lot of visual novels, will pay attention to this one, is that I noticed how there is actually a lot of real gameplay in this visual novel.
Shit! The internet's saying that banks are flooded with people who can't access their accounts. They're demanding cash withdrawals.
And some of these gameplay sequences are incredibly exciting. They are white-knuckle rides. The game is set in the near future, and it features a young 16-year-old hacker called Polon Takaoka, who works with a group of friends. They've formed a group called Nakano Symphonies and take on smaller hacking jobs. One day, he happens to meet a mysterious girl called Momo. Suddenly, very strange things start happening, including, and this is the one thing I'm going to give away about the game and its story mechanics.
Okay, here we go.
And that is that Polon acquires, somehow, mysteriously, an ability called save and load. Yes, it is just that. Just like we save and load in video games, Polon is able to turn the clock back, so to speak, to a previous save point and go back in time and revisit events. And that is all I'm going to say about this. Is obviously more complex than this, but this is the central mechanic on which the whole game hinges. A large part of playing through the game is obviously making decisions about which point to go back to and what to investigate at that point in time. Are you going to change anything, etc.? So there are some pretty tricky decisions to be made, which in itself is quite exciting. It's got a very sort of immediate sense of really jumping back in time. You know me and time travel, and you know how I love any stories around that. And this one has really captured an element of time travel in a way that you see very seldom. Steins Gate did it in its own way really well, and I think Anonymous Code also captures that time travel sense of excitement and how to make it believable. I was a bit concerned starting Anonymous Code, thinking, I'm not very good at physics, I'm gonna struggle to follow this. Yes, I did struggle a bit at times, and occasionally I closed the game and went to look up some reference and started reading more about it. But the information was always presented in such a way that it was simply exciting, and I wanted to know more, and I made sure I paid attention. You definitely need to pay attention in this game, this story. I don't recommend playing it like late at night when you're already tired. You need your brain in super functioning mode. And that way, I think you're actually going to get a lot out of this story. I learned a lot about quantum physics. So if you love anything related to hacking, to quantum physics, if you've ever heard of Schrodinger's cat and are interested in that, but also there are a lot of elements in the story that I would call conspiracy theory. The story in the latter part dives into all sorts of story elements, including the Vatican. At times I thought, I'm in a Dan Brown novel here, but no, I'm not a big Dan Brown fan, just saying. But if you are, I think you're going to love this. But I'm not a Dan Brown fan, and I thought this was fantastic. But you can see from that there is a whole mix of elements, from hacking and advanced drones and aeroplanes to the Vatican and obviously religious themes. I can only say it's a white-knuckle ride, the whole story. It might start slightly slow, but it does build up consistently until you're just hanging on to your seat.
Okay then, Miss Kurisu, please continue.
Finally, I want to touch upon the connection between Steins Gate and Anonymous Code. There are quite a few references to Steins Gate in this story that will enhance it for you if you know Steins Gate, but I don't think it will be a lesser experience if you go in without having played Steins Gate previously. The importance of quantum mechanics cannot be overstated for these two visual novels. 15 years after Steins Gate, Anonymous Code shows us a somewhat different vision of many worlds quantum mechanics. I find both utterly compelling. I really hope you find the time to catch up with Anonymous Code, or maybe even discover Steins Gate for the first time. My personal response to both stories is that Steins Gate still has the more profound emotional impact.
My calculations are undeniable proof that this world consists of mathematical equations.
Whereas Anonymous Code, for me at least, has the edge, where the weight of ideas and science is concerned, the mind-blowing intersection of all that with ordinary human life, and the sheer escalation of crazy plot events. I hope you found that interesting, even if you're not normally into visual novels. Thank you very much for your time, as always.
Shouldn't you be going now?
Oh, look at the time. Let's go, Polan.
Please, keep well. I'm food for dogs. Bye-bye.
It actually happened, huh? Although, why is all this happening anyway?